All right, guys, we're live. Welcome to the Difference Makers podcast. I'm here today with Chase Ingraham and Bill Grundler. I feel weird saying that because I feel like I'm introducing these iconic figures in the sport. So Bill and Chase are both affiliate owners, both CrossFit Games athletes, and both broadcasters in the sport. So welcome to the show, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Glad to be here.
Don't use the I word with us. Idiotic is the only I word that I feel like best fits our skill set.
I hear that, and my brain just goes to like, he's calling me old right on camera right now. Man. He's just saying old. He's been here forever.
These two old guys in the sport that they've just been around forever. You guys just hear their voices and you know who they are.
You guys remember these guys, right?
Oh my gosh.
You guys have just been the voice of this sport since the beginning, really.
Dude, we've been doing this shit a long time.
Yeah, Bill. Well, Bill was doing it before I was. Bill was doing it before I even knew there was broadcasting. He's like, yeah, we used to do it at regionals. I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I was lucky enough to be at the first games. So it was me and Marty Say and Justin Judkins. And back then, Miranda, she was doing the sideline stuff.
Yeah.
2010.
2010. That was the first broadcast games. Yeah, like actually broadcast. I mean, they did videos and obviously other stuff, but the first live broadcast. And none of us knew what the hell we were doing. I mean, what's a play-by-play? What's a color? We just were talking. And back then, like now, it's really cool. They have all the people that they brought in the best of the best producers and directors. So like they put us in the right places and everything. But back then it was like, okay, ready and go. And you talked for 8 hours.
Just go.
8 hours nonstop. There wasn't a break unless there was nothing on the field.
Yeah.
And it was nuts.
Was 2010 the first year at the Home Depot Center?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was crazy, man. It was so great. And we didn't know. We had no idea what we were doing. I had no idea. None of us were broadcast people. The only one that was Marty Say was he was a broadcaster on a Canadian like news like a business news station is where he came from.
Okay.
So that's where so he kind of had that voice, and he had that at least the broadcast savvy. He kind of knew the part. And then all of us were just like, we could talk CrossFit. I'll talk CrossFit all day long. And, there's that workout and here's this and here's that. But as far as knowing the flow and, what a color person is supposed to be talking about and what a play-by-play is, but we had no idea. We just were babbling on the microphone.
Wasn't Justin, he'd had CrossFit radio at the time? It was, what sucks for Justin is that he was too soon in basically, he was like the first CrossFit podcast ever.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
It was CrossFit radio, and he had guests, and they just talked about CrossFit, and that's where they brought Justin in because he was like a technical radio hosting dude.
Yeah.
Into the broadcast team, and what's crazy now is like he did that. When did he start? When was CrossFit radio? When did that start?
I want to say like 2008.
Yeah.
I want to say like 2008. Dude, he's so right. I still have one of the CrossFit Radio T-shirts.
So I have a don't ever sell that shirt, or
no way.
Save that shirt and then maybe sell it in the end. The first time I met Justin, this is when we were all together in 2012, and Bill was someone that was like a character and a figure in CrossFit to me. Justin Judkins was because I listened to the show a little bit once I started really getting into CrossFit. Like even more. And we did this workout as a team. And I think he had just come off like hernia surgery.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
And it's just like 12 to 14 of us all kind of meeting together for the first time and working out together for the first time. So we just tried to murder each other.
Yeah. It's pecking order to the max.
Yeah, exactly.
CrossFit pecking order.
We decided to okay, this is our one opportunity to decide where we all fall in the hierarchy. In the group, just based off this one workout. And poor Justin, he was months removed from a hernia surgery, and the dude should not have even worked out. But there was a lot of peer pressure back then.
And he's a wrestler too, so you can't tell a wrestler not to work out.
But on that
mentality,
one of the first videos on my phone is of Justin Judkins sitting at the bottom of a stairwell on the soccer field in the StubHub Center, dry heaving for 2 minutes.
So you guys did this workout on the floor?
We did
the
it on
games?
the field. So in 2012, were they using the soccer? Yeah, they started using the soccer field.
I think they just started using, but the beginning part, remember that was like the warm up area and stuff a lot of times. So they would have
stadium.
Yeah. Man, that was a long time ago.
I know. I still have that video. I don't think he knows I have that video. And for some reason, I just felt like I should save it. And I just have it there for a rainy day.
Man.
It was like literally the first video I ever recorded on my phone because I never had like an iPhone until like 2011, 2012. Justin Judkins, man. CrossFit Radio. Look at this.
Some OG stuff. Like people don't know about that right now.
Oh my gosh, dude, it is the very first one.
That's the first video I have on my cell phone. And it's of Justin Judkins dry heaving by a stairwell at the bottom.
Jeez, man.
Oh, there it is. Gosh, I forgot about that.
So Chase, how did you transition from CrossFit Games athlete to the broadcast booth?
Reluctantly. That's how I transitioned. You know, I was like Bill, I held on as long as I could until I was basically just forcefully removed from a fitness level not to be able to do it. So, you know, Bill's first broadcasting gig was 2010, and that's when I had made the CrossFit Games. So
yeah.
And I was there very briefly. I think it was like 4 events, and then I was cut, and it was like a day and a half. And I was like, all right, that was cool. And 2011 was a big year to make it back. And, you know, there wasn't a lot of pressure from the outside, but just for myself, you know, I felt like I still had the ability to, and I did. I ended up missing in 2011, barely. And then in 2012, I had to have shoulder surgery due to an injury I sustained in like high school. Didn't even know I did this. I swam and played water polo in high school and college, and I separated my shoulder playing basketball, like a normal swimmer would, because they're the most unathletic land creatures to ever the earth. Like, you watch a bunch of swimmers pick up basketball, and it looks like they're still wearing their fins. Like that's the athleticism you see out there, right? And so I ended up separating my shoulder. Didn't know I did it because, you know, every swimmer, you know, Bill, you know, this is like everyone's shoulders hurt. You just don't talk about it. It's just status quo, right?
Yeah, it's normal.
And so when I got into CrossFit, as I got stronger and started lifting more weights and doing more high skill, like upper body movements, I was like, you know, my shoulder really does still hurt, and it's not getting better. And then one day it was actually during JT. So 21-15-9.
Push, and push.
Yeah, it was push-ups, ring dips, and handstand push-ups. But at the time, the handstand push-ups were strict, not to date ourselves any more than we've already done in the first 10 minutes of the podcast. And I go down for a handstand push-up, and it feels like my whole right side just turns off. And so I found out, like, you know, the separation of my shoulder in high school, swimming on it for another 6 to 8 years. I tore my rotator cuff fully and had about to have bicep tendon rupture. It was like 95% gone. And I had soaked all of my identity into training for and trying to compete at the CrossFit Games. And so when that wasn't a thing, this was during the Open, I sat down with a buddy of mine. His name's Richard Drew. So I'll just throw his name out there because it was that was almost 10 years ago now. Yeah, 10, 11 years ago.
Yeah.
March of 2012. And I was like, I need to do something else because I'm lost, you know, I have shoulder surgery, and and he goes, you know what you should do? Because they have those update shows for the CrossFit Games. And it was like Rory McKernan in his bow tie and Matt Sherwood with hair. And I think Tommy Marquez was still getting coffee for everybody. I feel like that's the stage at which we were at. And he's like, you should pitch how to pick and select teams for the CrossFit Games, because I had done that for the last 2 or 3 years. So I was like, oh, that's cool. And sent the only person in media that I knew just the pitch idea for the update show. And it was Dave Ray, who's a photographer for CrossFit forever. And now he does a lot of things with Rogue. And he lives in Austin, Texas. And every time I see him, I'm like, I give him a big hug. I'm like, the only reason why I'm here It's because of you, because he forwarded my email to Tony Budding, and then Roy McKernan calls me like 4 days later, and he's like, hey, we're going to go broadcast the Central East Regional in 2012. Do you have any broadcast experience? I go, absolutely not. Do you want to go? I was like, absolutely. And so that it was really that basic at the time with, a lot of, new CrossFit positions opening up is like, I just asked to be a part of something and then got the opportunity.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I was talking to my girlfriend, now wife. And I was like, hey, I got this broadcasting gig to go to regional. She's like, cool. When is it? And I was like, when, Bill, was it? Sometime in May?
Yeah.
Sometime in May. It was during your regional, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's right. Because that's right. Yeah.
And she's like, that's the date of my law school graduation. And I was like, okay, so do you want me to go to that? And
wait, is that a thing? I don't know what you're talking about. Is
like,
that a thing?
You graduated college.
Wait, did you not hear what I just said? I get to go be a broadcaster. Did you miss that part of the conversation?
So that was quite a thing to navigate as well. And I chose the broadcasting gig over the graduation. And fortunately, she stuck with me through that. And we actually just celebrated our 7-year anniversary. So that's how it all came to be.
And that was so 2012 regional. That would have been the year after Rich won his first one, and there's a ton of hype around him. And you're at the Central East, and that was seen as like the big dog regional at the time.
The Central Beast regional, that's what they called it back then.
Yeah.
Although everybody was on when because it was tryouts basically for this whole new broadcasting crew. There was usually at regionals now there's like a play-by-play in color for individuals, and then maybe a play-by-play in color for teams. Usually both guys do the same thing. And it was like that, especially for me and Bill for years.
Yeah.
And they had like 12 people there just trying them out, seeing who's good, who's bad, who's going to get like a bid to the games for this. And the whole time everyone's on their phones talking about Bill Grundler. Like, Bill's in the lead and Bill's doing great. And I'm like, and I didn't really know Bill that much yet. And I was like, who's this Bill dude? And why is everybody so hyped about Bill?
Because he's old, man. He's old. What the heck is happening over there in California?
And I think it was after the first day where they had Diane. It was Diane, right? That was the first event of that weekend. And then was the second one the row pistol hang power?
Yeah.
So that was 2012. Oh, which we'll be getting into next week. Yeah, like Bill was kicking ass and in the lead, and everyone was hyped up around it. And so like my first broadcasting experience didn't involve Bill directly.
Yeah.
But centered around Bill indirectly from him at another regional.
It was actually cool. I remember getting like texts from like Pat Sherwood and everybody like, dude, first ? I'm like, yeah, I guess. I don't know, doing my thing. I still got to get my t-shirt made though. I think I am the oldest athlete to beat Rich in a competition setting like that, where all the regionals were standardized. So everyone's doing the same stuff. I beat Rich and Diane on that year.
And you did it on the same weekend, so people can't say that you saw what he did. You did on the same.
And I had no idea what was happening. I just came out and just did my thing. Like I remember, because I was in there with like Kenny Leverich and David Libson and like those cats, Jeremy Kinnick and like those old school guys. And they were ahead of me in the beginning, but like just like gymnastic events will go, like you push so fast and all of a sudden you get to a point where you either fail or you just can't do the next one. And somehow I got past Kenny in the end. And all of a sudden I came off the wall after the last 9 and I'm looking around and I'm like, what? What? I'm the only one up. So I won. No way. I was all excited. Like, oh my gosh, it was crazy. But yeah, that was a crazy year.
You guys are dropping some names that we haven't heard for a long time. And probably a lot of the listeners don't even know who they are.
We are the human embodiment of the CrossFit coffee table book. Oh, so like we can flop through verbal pictures of the old landscape of what CrossFit was, which I honestly believe it's not about like back in my day, that kind of a thing, it's a remembering where you came from, I think, which is really, really important. I mean, the landscape now with CrossFit is such a cool setup. And it's funny to talk to people that are like, oh, how long have you been doing CrossFit? Oh yeah, 5 years. Do you remember so-and-so? Nope, don't remember that name at all. I'm like, how do you not remember that name?
Yeah.
Like, that's the precursor to this entire, whatever we're talking about. And so that's one of the things that of all the things that we do and, all the different pieces that we've touched with, broadcasting or the podcast or commentating or whatever it is, I love being able to be that bridge between the origins of CrossFit competition. Not, I mean, obviously there are going to be people like Andy Sakamoto and stuff like that were Nicole Carroll, that were the original workout people that you would see, in the videos and stuff. But as far as the competition goes, being able to bridge that, the breaking ground of the competitions and being able to explain that and be able to carry that to the people that are doing it now. I mean, the stuff that people are doing now, like you compare the two sides, like they don't even really equate, what the athletes were doing back then. And even we were like, oh my gosh, that's an unreal. And then you look at it now and it's like, they would barely, it probably wouldn't even qualify, like not even remotely close, but being able to bridge that in showcasing that, the history of, I'd say it's such a cool thing. It's such a cool thing.
I'd say Bill is like the three-eyed raven of the CrossFit games.
Just seen it all. It's crazy to think that like Emma Carey and Mal O'Brien were like infants when this thing started.
Literally.
They were, maybe born.
I mean,
two, maybe two, because it's 15 years of the CrossFit Games, right?
Yeah.
17 at the games.
Yeah.
And Emma Carey had just turned 17 between like the Open and the games. So they're 1 and 2.
Yeah.
At the first CrossFit Games.
And you look at sports like baseball and football and soccer, and you're like, oh, they've been around like hundreds of years. Like we're pulling stats from the early 1900s. And then you're like, oh, this just started.
Yeah. And that's, we say that, and we'll say that a lot, it's a young sport. It's a young sport. It's a young sport. It doesn't, when you're in it, it doesn't feel young, but when you stand back and you look actually, what we are. And so, everyone they complain about this thing, or they complain about that, or they'll complain about the standards, or they'll complain about the scoring, or they'll complain about whatever. We are just exiting our first decade of trying to figure out the best way to do this test. And so there are multiple variations of, okay. And that's what's important to remember. Yes, it's a competition, but it is a test to try to find the fittest person. A competition to try to find the fittest person, obviously. But the test has to go through these different variations to figure out what's the right way. I mean, you look at baseball, you look at football. It's not like this stuff didn't change to get to where it was. There was a lot of playtime and a lot of figuring out, well, let's try these rules. Well, how about these rules? Well, how about these rules? Until it whittles its way down to, okay, now it's standardized and move forward from there. But it's young, man, really young, not sort of young. Like it's still a baby. It's still a baby.
And to think that, like, you look back at some of the past years, with even in the last 5 years, how much has changed within the competitive landscape and the even how it's presented to the audience.
Yeah.
The floor layout, stuff like that has changed so much in such a short period of time.
That's actually been there was a big disparity, I think, in the early days of like the broadcasting part, like the competition broadcast, not the update shows and that kind of thing, but the battles that used to happen between Tony Budding, who was the media side, and then Dave Castro, who was the competition director side, of trying to show like, okay, well, what's more important? And back then it was the competition if you were Dave, and it was the broadcast if you were Tony. And now what's really cool is the media side and the competition side has understanding that what's more important, and the answer would be like, yes. It's the same question as what's more important, moving correctly or moving fast? And the answer would be yes. It's the same thing. You got to have both. And so, now a lot of the competition stuff and Dave's gotten really good at this, where he's designed these appropriate tests but then making it set up a certain way to like, okay, we can still do the test, but make it look this way so you can see who's winning. You can talk about who's winning. The fans can get behind who's winning. And that it really does take work to do that. Programming itself is an art, but programming for the test, also making it look a certain way, is like a whole nother level to that art. There's a lot of variables to put in there, and I think he does a really good job. It's been a lot of years to do that.
Yeah.
But he's done a really good job of doing that.
One of the biggest feedbacks that you kind of hear from time to time from the athletes is that they're not showcased if they're not the 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 within the heat. One of the issues
to sports.
Yeah. How do you guys balance that out with like that visual of 20 athletes on the floor at a time and only being able to see 1 or 2 of them?
Well, there's a big communication thing I think people don't really understand is what goes on behind the scenes during a broadcast, right? And so we have, if it's me and Bill in the booth, we can obviously talk to each other because we hear each other and we're mic'd up, but we're also mic'd up and listen to a producer and a director in the truck. One is looking at every camera that's on the field and selecting which one that should be seen. And for us, is that we see what you see at the exact same time.
Yeah.
We may get a little heads up in ears like, hey, we're going to lane 6, or, this is coming up. And usually we're following where the producer and the director takes us. Right. And sometimes like if Bill's doing color, he has an opportunity to say, if I'm talking, is to look out on the field, if we're even in a position to do so, and talk back to the director and producers like, hey, this is going on over there. But at the same, in the end, you're calling a race, right?
Yeah.
You're not calling your 12 buddies working out in your gym that you just want to go around and high five and give them a cue and then move on to the next one. Like, we're not doing that. We're calling a sport. So if we're doing a track meet, right? We just had the Olympics go on and someone's in a lead that's about to break the world record. Why would I go to lane 6, who's just getting smoked by everybody, while I'm watching a race take place, right?
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, we didn't talk about 6 of the 10 people because they were irrelevant to the race that was actually happening on. So I think a lot of people, just like anything, is like they have their favorites or their friends or their family and they want to see their favorites. But if they're not making an impact on the event, on the race of what the real story is, then they're not a part of it. That's just it goes.
And so there's a story within the story. Obviously, there's the who is winning this race. Then there's also the what is the story that's taking place. So the only time really we will go back into the field and see like, someone that's falling way behind is if it's Matt Fraser that can't get up the rope, or it's Pat Vellner who is limping in the back of the bike, or is at the very back of the swim because he's one of the big stories and he's supposed to be the next Matt Fraser taking that spot, and now he's last coming out of the, like, those are the things that, like, that's a story and that's a big piece of the overall picture of what we're trying to paint to everyone. But the priority is going to be who's winning this race. And one of the things in race, in any kind of race that you talk about, if you're going to be calling a competition, you will be able to see the top 3 because they're usually battling back and forth. 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th usually is like in this weird eclipsed place. Because as 1, 2, and 3 is coming in, and you're kind of talking about why they got there, how they, what they did. Maybe there's replays, or you're seeing them kind of writhing around and rolling around on the ground. During that time, 4, 5, 6, 7 comes through the finish line, so you don't see them. And then all of a sudden, it's like, okay, well, the time cap was longer than we needed to go, and now we have another 5 minutes, and we have 5 people left on the floor, and it's like, well, okay, now we're going to end up talking about these guys because we have 5 minutes left to go. Now we're going to be talking about that. We have to. Yeah. Not that that's bad, but you will get these athletes that will be in the top 10 overall, maybe not on the podium spot. Maybe they're like, 6th place, 5th place. So they're pushing for that podium, but you didn't really get to see them compete because they're in that eclipse. They didn't knock it out of the park, and they didn't fall off the fence. They're somewhere in the middle. So it's a very weird timing thing. And I get it. Everybody wants to see their people. And, it's like, hey man, my sponsors, and they want to see, and it's like, the answer to that is, well, then either do better or do worse. One of the two. You know, so
it's either Ricky Bobby, right? You either
you're the
first
first or you're last.
You got to pick one. You can't just be average. No one's. You have to be exceptionally good or extravagantly awful.
Yeah.
Try telling your sponsors that.
Hey, this isn't going to be mine, but I promise I'll get dead last. It's going to be me in 2 minutes until the time cap, and I'll just wear your shirt and I'll be on the broadcast by myself. It's like, hey, you want the most FaceTime? There's a deadlift box jump workout coming up, and I guarantee you, I'll be the only guy out there for 5 minutes by myself, in your t-shirt.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, so for you guys with your podcast, now we didn't talk about it at the top, but you guys have Get With the Programming.
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys balance kind of being critical of CrossFit and also working for them? Is there any conflict there, or being critical of some of the programming?
Yeah, and there's a delicate balance, and I think a lot of it stems with how me and Bill grew up in the CrossFit community, and as well as like CrossFit internally. Is that internally, especially in like seminar staff stuff, was some of the biggest things they do is give constructive feedback. And a lot of times the best feedback you can get to improve something is to be informed of what it is that you need to improve. And you do that by making mistakes. And then they come in and they're like, hey, listen, these are all the things you did well. These are all the things you need to work on to get better so that we all get better. And when we have any type of criticism or critique of the programming or what had happened, is that it's all coming from a place of constructive feedback. These are the things, and it's okay to say you didn't do this right, because everyone's going to make mistakes. That's me, that's Bill, that's CrossFit, that's Dave, that's that's just going to happen. That's human nature. And there's a way to address that. There is a delicate balance. But for me and Bill, and I'm not going to speak for Bill himself, but like, we are always honest with our opinions, positive or negative, but at the same time, we provide a explanation or a way to get better, as opposed to just complaining. And that's the thing that drives me crazy with a lot of things today, is like, people will just complain to complain, and they'll offer no solution or ideas to make it better, to make it to improve the product. So from us, is like, if we have any criticism, it's backed by a solution or an opinion that we both have. So yeah, if that wasn't the right thing based off our opinion, we give a opinion process to make it better. Right? And it's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I think that the fact that we've been around CrossFit for so long, we've done a lot of different things in CrossFit, as far as broadcasting and competing and, being an affiliate owner and living the life of CrossFit, is that, we will say that a lot of times. Hey, we are just armchair quarterbacking this particular competition, or this games event, or these, the open, or whatever it is. We know as programmers that sometimes we will set up a beautiful workout and it will hit just perfect. And other times it'll be like, whoa, dang, missed the mark on that one. I mean, it totally happens, and so
all the time.
So I think that, we are open enough to say that we think that we are good at what we do. We've done it for a really long time, but we still mess up also. And we recognize when we do. And so here we are looking at these other events and explaining what it is, explaining why we think it's a messed up. And in all reality, we just go, there will be times when Chase will think one way and I will think the other way.
Yep.
And it's, I think, refreshing the fact that me and Chase are close and we could have completely different opinions and be like, dude, I do not agree with what you're talking about. Nope, not even close. And be like, all right, well, that's what you think. And I think this. And we're cool with that. Like, that's okay. It doesn't mean that I think he's a jerk or he thinks I'm a jerk. It's like, we can have our opinions and that's okay. But what we are doing is we are throwing some information out to the listeners that are paying attention about our point of view on that particular thing, why we think it's good. And just like Chase said, we're trying to give constructive criticism of and using our opinions of why we think it's good or bad, what we think would make it better, or is there any way to make it better at all, or is it perfect, or whatever. And again, it's restating it's our opinion. So
Yeah.
there have been a lot of weird things that have happened with CrossFit, and I think with even in the programming side, we will always try to say, hey, this is not a shot on CrossFit. This is not a shot on Dave. This is not a shot on. I mean, there were a lot of things we talked about in the Open this year.
Yeah.
Finals
especially, and
the quarterfinals, and at no time did we say CrossFit has their head up their ass. Dave has his head up his ass. I mean, we were like, okay, that's way excessive. That shouldn't have been this way. It should have been like this. What if we retool it and we do it this way? And I think that's one of the things that we have done well. And and a lot of this is guided by Chase. He's like, hey, what if we take all the things that we said that were messed up and we retool the whole thing, just to show that it can be restructured. Doesn't mean that ours is perfect. Just means that it's another version of it. And so I think that it's been really fun. It hasn't been a we are right, you're wrong. It hasn't been a this sucks. It's a here's another way to do it. And here's another way to do it. And it's been pretty open that way, which has been really fun, I think.
The most fun I have really is when we disagree.
I agree with that.
not like a first take fake, like let's just argue to stir up drama and listeners and what. It's like I love the way Bill and I handle not agreeing on a subject, because I respect Bill's opinion and point of view and he respects mine, and we can literally just sit there and be like, I do not agree with you.
Totally.
I respect where you're coming from, but we'll just move on to the next topic. And it doesn't, nothing always, I think people don't understand is like, you don't always have to win and you don't always have to lose. And that's a lot of the problems with a lot of things these days. Like, oh, this is the way. Like, there's not.
Right.
Unless it's math, there is not one answer to this problem right now. Right. Because all of it's debate and ideas and personal opinions. And, we have our own, as much, the negative ones probably get more attention because like, oh, how could you say something like that? But it's like, I mean, shoot, for 15 years of CrossFit programming in the spotlight, you think you're not going to have a couple that just miss or a slump? If people looked at, Bill's 13 years of programming and mine 12 years of programming and just picked it apart on a podcast or national television I was like, how much crap I would get for all the bad things I've programmed over the years, so it's like, and it's in the limelight. And, for Bill and I is like, yeah, you do walk a fine line because these are people you respect. They're friends. They're people you care about. And it's all centered around CrossFit and the CrossFit community and the CrossFit games, which we care about even more. I care more about CrossFit and the CrossFit community and the games than I do about any single person that works for CrossFit or that I'm friends with. And Bill will say the same thing.
Totally.
And that's why we're critical sometimes, because it's not about the person. It's not about the event. It's about the CrossFit community. It's about the games, and it's about CrossFit as a whole. And that's where all of our opinions centered around, not a person.
Yeah.
And that's where we come from.
That's awesome. That's awesome take. You know what? When you guys talk about the community and being so heavily, focused on that, it's, this is the spectacle, or the games, specifically is a spectacle that gets the most eyes. It gets the most viewers. And when it fails, like there's been some pretty noticeable fails, but when it hits, it's like, that was something special. Yeah. That was really something special to see and to watch. And this year specifically.
You want to know what's crazy is it's very easy when it goes great, you just kind of have like a good feeling like, oh man, that was awesome. But it's just like any other thing in sports. When there is a bad call, when there is a bad something, that one tiny thing has like the 10 times effect over anything that was good. It's like you can do 10 good things and all it takes is one to ruin your bad thing to ruin your reputation, like that kind of stuff. So I think that there needs to be a little bit of grace that's given to anything that's happening. I mean, even in sports. I mean,
oh yeah,
when you have, if it's a judging call, whenever you have a human that's out there, there's going to be some subjectivity, and no matter what the rules are, no matter what sport you're talking about, there's going to be that was a bad call, that was a bad play, that referee, that judge, that whatever, or it's a the cut line or the scoring tables or the event or the order of the events.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the fact of the matter is that shit happens sometimes, and you still, like, everyone's still playing by the same game, the same pieces. They're all tossed into the same bucket together, and I don't know. I think that people just love to talk, and that's the society that we're in now. Everyone just wants to kind of bitch about everything, so it makes it easy to do that. But
that'll
do what
happen
we can
when we broadcast.
Yeah,
I mean, me and Bill will broadcast 3-4 days of competition for like 10 to 12 hours, and the only feedback we'll get is a name we screwed up or a movement we didn't get right, or like the one time I said the one thing or didn't label this body part the right way, or I said the wrong movement in the workout description. And that's the only feedback we'll get from the public. And that's just what it is, right? And like that, it doesn't bother me. Like it just bothers some people. I know some people that work in this field that like scour like Reddit and whatever their comments are saying about the broadcast. Like, hey, did you see this? Like, I don't care. Like, and I said before, like, I don't care about one person's opinion about anything because I'm not doing it for that. And so that's just the way it is.
And honestly, the fact is they can have their opinion.
Yeah.
That's okay. They're allowed. That's what's great about opinions is you're allowed to have your opinion. It's yours. You can think whatever you want.
Just don't treat it as fact and judge me by your own personal standards.
Yeah. The opinion is your opinion, and that's what's when me and Chase are talking, we have our opinions, we have our angles that we come from, our programming perspectives and, our priorities and what we think is important and how we design and what we think is going to be priorities in whatever it is that we're setting up, because that's the way that we do what we do. That's not to say that the way that I do is the only way or the right way. It's my way. Chase does his way.
Yeah.
And when you line them up, it's like you can't say that they're competing next to each other necessarily because they're two different paths.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I love when I hear people complain about whatever, and like, we'll get a lot of people that will talk about, we make a big deal about the 9-foot target rule. And we have a lot of people that talk about the 9, there should not be a 9-foot target on wall balls. We just don't think that should be a thing. We both agree with that because of where we come from. But there was a lot of people out there that think that they feel that there should be that. And so we get into discussions about that. And the discussion is what the discussion is. A lot of times the discussion comes down to at least us educating or coming from our professional experience mindset of why we think it's this way. I will never program a 9-foot wall ball ever. I don't think I ever have, honestly.
Scaled option in my gym.
Interesting.
So that's whatever. If CrossFit wants to have that, that's their option to do it. It's their competition, so they can put whatever they can make a 4-foot target if they wanted to. I mean, it's their choice. I wouldn't do that, but it's their choice. We might talk about that in our podcast about how we think that that's a wrong thing, but it is what it is.
Like
great.
For an example, like me and Bill program for our affiliates completely differently.
Totally.
Oh
completely
yeah.
Differently.
What would you say you would? What's your style? What are those little difference makers between you guys?
Well, I mean, for me, it's like I have like an outline for the week, and I do 12 weeks at a time, and I have specific things for specific days, and I move around like strength, long, heavy. I rotate that throughout the week. But Bill is every day is a strength and a Metcon,
basically
for the majority, right?
For the majority, yeah.
Like I don't do that. In fact, we had a whole episode about programming pet peeves, and that was in my top 5.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
At least it wasn't number 1.
Well,
It wasn't number one, but like, you know, it was just, that's the funny thing is like, we have these two different ways and like, there's nothing wrong with the way Bill programs. Zero.
hell no, there isn't.
And people love that. And it works because, you know, in the way Bill talks about it is like, listen, it's a free flow schedule. People have weird things. So we just do a little bit of everything every day to accommodate just life itself. And I was like, that's a great way to do it. You know, it's like mine is more OCD structure because that's just how I am in my gym. I'm only OCD in the confines of my affiliate box. Everywhere else is just a mess. And that's just the way we do it. And, you know, it's like, I love Bill's programming. Like the way he puts workouts together and assembles them is like, it's fantastic. Right. But the way we put things together on a weekly basis for an affiliate are two completely different processes, not necessarily different actual workouts or programming.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that's our experience. That's our history. That's how we were brought, you know, these things will be how we were brought up, either in our early days of CrossFit or our coaching days or our athletic days, or, you know, even some of that comes down to how we're trying to do what we're doing business-wise. I mean, one of the things that I've learned doing this is there is a big difference between being a coach and being a business owner. And sometimes when you are programming, you're not programming for someone who's trying to qualify for the CrossFit Games. And they're like, Coach, I'm paying you to get me to the games. There are people that are coming in that want to work out. They want to lose weight. They want to be healthier.
99%.
They want to enjoy that hour. They want to feel good when they leave. They want to do whatever. And what do they need to do that? So I was just having this conversation with one of my coaches the other day who he was all excited. He had to get one of his certifications, you know, re-upped and everything. So he just went through the seminar again and was all fired up and all, you know, CrossFit out and all ready to just lower all this great information and coaching cues on everybody. And it's like, hey, I get that. But again, this is not when they come in here, this is their time. It's your job to make their day better, not showcase how great of a coach you are by using all these cues and just hammering them on all this stuff. Yeah. It's a fine line of trying to walk that. Yeah. So, whether it's programming, I know, so programming, I now have some of that's built in to my programming because I want people to feel, like they're getting the most out of the time that they're here. I would have a hard time, me personally, and this is one of the things that I kind of guide myself with is if I'm traveling to another box and in that box we're doing, and this is a big discussion, 5x5 back squats.
Yep.
I'm going to be like, okay, I don't know if I want to pay $20 for that, on the drop in for that. That's not to say that there isn't, if you talk to, I think a majority of like the seminar staff group have that feel of, hey, because that's very CrossFit.com-ish. It's like if it says 5x5, it's not just 25 reps.
Right.
There's teaching, there's learning, there's warming up, there's working on your technique and working on your body positioning. There's all of these things that go into that. And that gives the coach a lot of opportunity to go around to all the people in the class and make sure that they're working on the virtuosity and they're doing all these. And that is awesome because that is important to what we do. Virtuosity in CrossFit is a very important thing for all the people that think that, you just want to move fast, you just want to move heavy, you don't care about position. That is so not true. Just because there are people that do that doesn't mean that that's what the emphasis is. So that is a very important thing. I know for myself that if I was to go in and I had to pay that, I would have a hard time doing that. So that's where I like when I'm looking at my people, it's like, oh, I want to make sure you are getting the most out of your time here. And a lot of people, if they aren't used to I'm coming in for coaching, they're like, I just want to get some sweat going. That's hard to balance. And so, again, there's not a right or a wrong. It's just how you choose to do it. And I just choose to do it the way that we do it. And, Chase chooses to do it the way he does it. His people love his programming and his setup, and my people love our program and our setup. Yep. And it's cool. And it's all right. That's what's cool about it.
Yeah.
That's what makes CrossFit affiliates so great is you can do that. It's not a franchise.
I was coaching an athlete the other day, and he asked me, "How many different CrossFit workouts are there?"
Ooh.
I was like, there's an infinite number of workouts.
How many stars are there?
Yeah.
In the universe.
Oh my God, that's actually kind of a cool question.
Yeah.
Because you see someone that is like, that's like a little kid asking about, where do babies come from? Like that's a big question right there.
Yeah.
That's funny. I asked a question to the first affiliate I joined, the guy who owned it. I was like, how do you get a hero workout? And he told me, I go, oh, never mind.
Yeah.
I don't want one named after me.
They have it. Isn't that 21:59 deadlift?
Yeah, right. Deadlift and box jumps.
I feel like there's a story there. Are you talking now the regional workout, the deadlift box jump? I mean, it's come up a couple times now.
2-time regional workout event. Yeah, there's a story there. Okay, the quick story was, I mentioned at the top of the show, is in 2011 I barely missed the CrossFit Games. It's because of that stupid event. It's because I barely missed the CrossFit Games because I got 34th in that event, and it didn't help that the scoring system was points per place finishing. So if you get a 34th place finish, you're pretty much done. But it didn't matter that the other 4 events was a first, 2 seconds, and a third. Don't worry about that part where I had 4 finishes in the top 3, but that 34th place deadlift effing box jump workout kept me out of the CrossFit Games in 2011, which was super great. So then I had shoulder surgery in 2012. I spent this whole year getting back to form. I'm at the 2013 regional, and I am blowing the doors off everyone. I am winning at the halfway point by 23 points. 23 points in a point per place system. Basically, I have it locked up, except for the fact that the 4th event was the damn 21 box jump workout again, where I took 41st, and it effed me up so bad that I took 41st in event 6, and I took 41st again in event 6, event 5 and 6, and ended up in like 20th overall. I went from first by an insurmountable lead to dead effing last in the next 3 events because of that stupid deadlift box jump event. So if you wanted the story, there it is.
Could you imagine what the long version of that story would have been?
Oh, man. Hey, if it makes you feel any better, I missed my first year. I did the open. I missed regionals because of the deadlift push press box jump event that AMRAP.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
15 reps moved me up something like 200 places on the leaderboard.
Wow. And
it was the year. So I think they took 60 to regionals in 2013, 2012, 2013, whatever it was. They took 60 and I finished 68th. But on that one workout, 15 reps, one round. Actually, sorry, it was 15 reps, one set of the box jumps would have moved me up 200 places on the leaderboard in Canada East.
Yeah, me and Bill had a critique of that.
Totally.
11 minutes of box jumps.
That workout is the death of me.
No, that's a terrible workout. Don't ever do that one again.
Yeah. Jeez.
So for you guys practicing, do you guys ever practice your broadcast skills? Like, how do you guys do that? How do you guys just get ready for an event?
I mean, no. I don't want to say no, like we don't prep, right?
Yeah.
There's a difference between prep and practice. Yeah. And a lot of Bill and I's practice was like off-season stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like Bill got into that world before I did. And I was so thankful for Bill because, he would help me get these like off-site or off-season broadcasting gigs, which was very, very rare in the early. It's still very rare now, honestly.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like Granite Games and WODProof. Like Bill and I were the first only broadcasters for WODProof for like the elite individuals and teams. And the same thing for Granite Games. And then Bill gets a gig in Dubai and gets me out there, which is super cool. And then we did the East Coast Classic when it was Ben Bergeron's deal. It's like, so a lot of our practice was the off-season stuff that none of the other broadcasters did.
Yeah.
And all those gigs were just like hustling. And,
totally.
Just in me riding Bill's coattails for like 5 years. And so that's the practice part, but the prep, that comes, that I don't think that ever stops. The prep. It's like we watch what happens during the open. We watch everything that happens in regionals. We look at the off-season stuff. We get information from like Chad Schroeder, who truly is the three-eyed raven.
Dude, that guy, yeah.
Right? Chad Schroeder is the stats man for CrossFit, and he has everything. Everything. Yeah. Chad had shit from 2011 that you cannot find on the internet, and he had all the answers to those questions. It was crazy, everything that he has. So like that prep's 24/7.
Yeah.
And it's not really prep, like Bill, it's just what we do. Like this is all we talk about. Like, not to sound like stupid and boring, like, oh, this is all you guys do, you just talk about CrossFit. It's like, no, we're just like, that's how invested we are. So it never leaves. Right. Yeah. And so the prep is more like individualized with new people, but the practice was all those off-season events.
And I think one of the things, like, there are commentators, I think, in all kinds of different sports where they come at it as a fan.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wouldn't say that we are, and Chase has said that, we're fans of CrossFit. And I'm not going to say that we aren't fans, but we have a much deeper connection to what it is. We have been competitors. We have been coaches for athletes. We have the general community. We are coaches on the floor for all different levels of people. We do programming ourselves. We don't have a problem talking and communicating about this stuff. And so this is like, this the world that we're in. So as far as like, do we practice the talk about CrossFit? No. I mean, in fact, the way that we got put into our spots was we're not afraid to talk on air. We're not afraid to talk. We like, the light doesn't go on and we don't go, I have nothing to say now.
Yeah.
Like if someone says, hey, stretch it out, that's what we do, man. Like you want to talk for 2 hours? We've been on podcasts where they're like, hey, just to let you know, the podcast is going to be 45 minutes. That might be a long time. I'm like, dude, all you need to ask me is one question. I will fill that time.
Yeah. I'll stretch.
Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's what we do. So the talking part is not an issue for us. It was more making sure that as long as we know what the event is and we start bringing in our information, and then, of course, the play-by-play they have their part that they're in their information that they want to work with, and the color will have their part and information that they want to work with, so that broadcast can flow. And then I think more what's important now for the broadcast shows that go on at different places, that there is a very unique synergy between those two people. And I've worked with Sean for a lot of years. I've worked with Chase for a lot of years. Even from my position, there are two different tempos when I'm working with each of those guys. That's not a good or a bad. It's just, that's the flow. I have a certain tempo with Sean, and I have a certain tempo with Chase. And what's interesting is when a lot of, they're bringing in new players, and they're bringing, they want to test some more people. They want to grow the team, the media team, and you bring in some other people, that flow will get disrupted. And I don't think the general public necessarily can see it, but since I know these guys, like, I'll be able to see the flow get different. All of a sudden, someone's saying something that they always say that's kind of like their little crutch word, because they're waiting to think. It's like, that tempo's not there how it normally is, or someone's talking more than normal, or not as much as normal as they usually are. And I think the practice is just experience between the two. I mean, when I sit down with Chase, when we sit down to talk, we've obviously done the very professional edge of the broadcast side, and then the very low key of our podcast. And there is a difference between the two. I mean, when we're on our podcast, it's like me and Chase sitting down at a table with a beer. And that's kind of one of the things that he wanted. He wanted that show to be that design like that. Us talking about the events with a beer in our hand after the crowd. That's what he wanted it to look like. When we're on the air, we try to get very professional, meaning Chase wants to tell you what is happening, who is in the lead. I'm going to tell you why they're there and how they got there and what they should be doing with that. So that's kind of the setup with that. And the more times you get to do that, that flow becomes very natural and very easy, and it gets very, I think, I mean, it's really nice. You look at any of the other sports that have their commentators that have been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
You almost feel comfortable when they're talking. It's like they're picking up a nice warm blanket and laying it over you because you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I know what's happening now. I can obviously see what's happening, but now I know this and I hear these things and what they should be doing, why they're doing it, and who's doing this, and what points need to be made, and all this. It just made it really. The idea is to kind of fill in the cracks of the experience for the viewer, entertain and educate while they're watching it. So, yeah.
And you're spot on with the rhythm stuff, and then for me is like I've been on both sides, like play-by-play and color, but like when me and Bill work together, I do play-by-play. So like I call what's happening, and Bill, like he just said, he's like the why, the how, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And he's right. It's like our podcast is pretty laid back, and we try to make sure that we're having fun, and even the times where we're upset about something, and or I am, and but on our broadcast, like we are very professional, but we want to make sure is that people are having fun while it's happening. Right. So we're doing our jobs professionally, but we're having a great time while we're doing it. And that's really what I love about working with Bill, is that so if like, oh, I have to go to Dubai, honey, I'm sorry, I'm going to be gone for 7 days and I have to work.
Yeah.
Which is a total lie. And I don't want to. It's not work. He's like, I get to hang out with my best friend, and I get to broadcast with my best friend, and I get to have fun. If we have to call 14 straight hours of stuff, it doesn't matter, because we're very professional at what we do. We're very good at what we do for CrossFit. We've been doing it for over a decade, and we have a lot of fun while we do it. And what we hope is that people get that education from the broadcast, from the professional side between me and Bill, but they have a great time with the broadcast too. It's not just someone's like, this is what it is and how it's happening, and this is why, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, instead of being at a table on a couch having a beer, we're in a broadcast booth having a beer. Not really.
I was going to say, that's the stuff you're not supposed to tell people.
No, that was it. What was that? It was at the North Cal Regional. It was
oh my God, it was.
It was a North Cal Regional in 2005.
That was when I blew my knee out.
Yes. Was it 2015 or 2015?
2015.
Bill's gimping around the entire weekend because he just tore his ACL the weekend previous. And it's like the final event of the final day of the final regional, right? This is the last of the last, because we're in California. So it's the last one to go.
Yeah.
And in the final event, me and Bill, I don't even know how we got them.
I don't know how we got them either.
But we got beers in our hands. Broadcasting. This is how far we've come in the professionalism. Broadcasting live, beer in hand. And it took Nicole Carroll to come down. He's like, hey, I get it, but let's save this till after. And I think I just like took a real big sip and I put it underneath my desk. And as soon as like, all right, that's the NorCal Regional. Congrats to the finales. And then we're out of here. And as soon as we were off, I was like, beer up, beer in my belly.
Oh man.
The old days, the good old days.
Good old days.
But even like with that, like, so we've done basically that same thing as, educating and entertaining as much as we can in a variety of situations. I mean, with CrossFit, they've always tried to really make it top of the line, the right trucks, you got the good producers and the directors, you have all the right equipment and everything like that. And we have worked in the stuff that you see on, all the football shows, all the World Series events, all of that. And Super the people that do that.
Yeah.
From that end, all the way to the flip side, where we're in some events where there's no camera on us. We don't have any headsets that we don't know when we're on the air, if we're on the air. We don't have any microphones. We are using a little lapel mic between the two of us, passing it back and forth as we're trying to do an event while we are laying back on this grass field with no shirts on because it's hot, because it's in Florida. And we're sitting there calling this event with one tiny little mic back and forth, telling the one lone camera guy, hey, just stay wide on the entire stage and don't go to anyone. And we'll just talk about whatever's happening.
Yeah. He like turns around and he goes, what? I was like, just sit down, bro.
Yeah, we don't.
I was like, can you see the whole stage? Yep, sit down. We'll take it from here.
Or it's raining so bad. We're in the same place, by the way.
Yeah.
It's raining so bad that all the cameras are down. The event's still going on. And we're supposed to be calling it because people are paying for this broadcast to watch it. I mean, it's a subscribed thing. So we go into, they have all of this stuff. It's not a truck. They have a van with a bunch of electronics in it that's all shoved in there. They have one little black and white TV that is cut up into quarters, and we can see there's one covered GoPro that is stuck over the main stage. You can't see the start of the stage. You can't see the finish of the stage, but you see people kind of passing back and forth. And me and Chase are shoved into this van. We're like, hey, well, let's just get in there and we'll start talking about it. And we just start talking. The event's going, and we're like seeing people go back and forth on this screen, and we're just talking. Sort of can see stuff. I mean, it is a torrential downpour.
It was terrible.
I think I know what year you guys are talking about.
It looked like it was shot on like security cam footage, and the van was off and the doors were closed. So like it got all foggy in there. It looked like Rose and Jack from the Titanic are in there broadcasting or doing whatever it is they're doing. And we're like calling on what is like the screen size of a Game Boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like where they got that TV from, I have no idea.
I don't know. And those are the best parts, though. Like those are, even in the moment, like it sounds like such a shit show, and it is, right? Yeah. It's a train wreck. But it was just the way we did it. I mean, we made do with what we could. Me and Bill are always appreciative of any position we're in, especially when it comes to like serving the community, and broadcasting to us is that opportunity.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with us. Zero. The less it has to do with us, the better. The only thing we want you to know about is what we're telling you, not who's saying these words and what they look like. I'd rather not. Like, you're going on camera. I'm like, dang it. Can we not? Can we just come on the air and start talking? Because like I said, we don't want it to be about us. We want it to be about the people on the field and the people watching the video feed. Like that's our priority.
And you guys can tell when you listen to those broadcasts, you can tell that you love what you're doing. You love the sport, the community, and all those things included in there. And I mean, that comes through when you guys are on the mic.
Cool.
I hope so. Yeah.
That's what we want. I mean, we don't talk for ourselves, even though we sounds like it.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure, dude. It's been awesome.
Before we go, where can they find you guys? We talked about your podcast a little bit. Tell me a little bit more. Where can they find you guys, and where can they hear you guys next?
Oh, on the podcast is called Get With The Programming. It's on all your podcast platforms that you get: Google, Spotify, iTunes, all that other stuff. It's Get With _ the Programming. Oh, you have a little graphic there.
I got graphics.
Very nice.
_ the Programming on Instagram. You guys can reach out to us there. We're running through our regional Analyzing the Programming series. You can find me, Chase _ Ingraham. And the next one we have coming up, we have an episode actually dropping later today for our Patreon supporters, which is going to be cool. We took the 55 events that was the 2010 regional, and we created our own standardized 6-event regional. So that's pretty cool. That'll drop later. And that's where you can find the podcast and myself and Mr. Bill Grundler.
Old Mr. Bill Grundler. Old Mr. Bill Grundler. Jeez, oh man.
Old. I didn't put the D on it. Old, like old glory.
There you go. Just at Bill Grundler. Same thing. If you do the, anything on the podcast posting, we both see that. I do a master's programming. I have my legacy program that I do. You can find that at the _legacy _program. Yeah, CrossFit Inferno is mine. CrossFit Big D is Chase's.
That's right.
I mean, we're splattered all over the place.
I go our YouTube. We Get With The Programming.
Oh yeah, we go.
You guys are more visual experience people, like we are on this podcast here. You can find us there as well.
That's right. Actually, we get a handful of comments on the YouTube as well, which is actually pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll respond. Respond every time.
Yeah. And even on that one, like we'll do one of the things that we didn't say real quick about the Get With The Programming. It's not just talking what the games program is. I mean, we go back and analyze all the different stuff, but then we start talking to programmers, what's their main field. We had Justin Kotler on here with Underdog, before the games, which is really big because there was a lot of hype behind, his team as they were coming through. Talking to those guys, you had Awesome Maliolo on, talking about the CAP program, the CrossFit affiliate program, and their programming and what they're trying to do. So we look at programming as a whole on there. So it isn't just competition. Was this event good or not? I mean, we look at programming as a whole. Pet peeves, some things are very, very, very opinionated. Some things are very fun. We did the whole Adam Klink thing, with the back squat and the mile run. What was the other guy's name that did it like immediately right after?
I was talking about the deadlift dude. After
the deadlift guy, yeah.
I screw up his last name every time, but
anyway, there's a lot of really fun things on this. So check out the podcast, check out the YouTube. It's a good time. We have a good time with everybody.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Justin.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hit that like button and subscribe down below for more content coming soon from WODProof.